I have never. But good. Yeah, I know. For Katie, not. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joaquin Esquivel, Chair of the State Water Resources Control Board. Today is, one moment, just want to make sure, is the mic working correctly? Okay. Good, good, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 2nd. It is 9:03 a.m., and I'd like to bring this meeting to order. I'll begin by introducing my fellow board colleagues. Joining me this morning virtually is Vice Chair Doreen Diadamo and Board Member Sean McGuire. I'm also joined by Board Member Nicole Morgan and Board Member Laurel Firestone. We're joined by our executive staff as well, our Executive Director, Eric Oppenheimer, our two Chief Deputies, Jonathan Bishop and Karen Mogus, our Chief Counsel, Michael Loffer, our Clerk of the Board is Courtney Tyler, and assisting her today is Margie Argel. As you can see, this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and web components. If you're joining us virtually, you're joining us through either the YouTube live website or the Cal EPA website stream. But if you intend on commenting on any of today's items, you need to be on the Zoom platform. There is a link and instructions on how to get onto the platform at the top of today's agenda. But if you're having any challenges, please do just email the clerk of the board at board.clerk@waterboards.ca.gov, and she can help you get onto the platform. Once you are on the platform, your camera will be off. You will be on mute until it is your turn to speak on the item you've indicated. For everyone here in the room, good to see you this morning. We're here in Sacramento in the California Environmental Protection Agency building. A few announcements for us here as well. Please do observe the exits. If we happen to have an emergency, we'll calmly file out to Cesar Chavez Plaza and await further direction. Additionally, if you intend on commenting on any of today's items or in public forum, there is a QR code at the side of the room and a laptop to be able to sign up. If you're having any challenges, please do just speak to the clerk of the board and we can make sure and get you signed up. Once you come to the podium, please do introduce yourself and any affiliation you have so that we can, and also please do silence any phones so that we can have an uninterrupted discussion this morning. This morning, we have a presentation of Superior Accomplishment Awards, and I appreciate everyone being here this morning for those. I know we have about 5 of them to get through. We also have a significant number of public forum commenters. So I'm going to take the liberty here as chair, and I'm going to swap those 2 items. So appreciate folks kind of hanging on, allowing us to take public comment and forum here at the start, and just really appreciate everyone's attendance this morning. As we first start into public forum, I would like to take the opportunity to speak first, actually, in public forum here. I think as many of you may know, we had an unfortunate incident last week where we had a Zoom bombing at the Administrative Hearings Office hearing on the Delta Conveyance Project. For those that are board watchers here that have watched these proceedings here at the State Water Resources Control Board, we handle a lot of difficult discussions. And as chair, I've been very proud of the forum and space that we've created, a safe space in order to discuss those very difficult issues in a way that is respectful and importantly allows us to have a discourse. What happened last week was not meeting that standard. Ultimately, there was concern, I know for ourselves and many others, that there was a compromise of the administrative accounts or some sort of hacking that may have gone on that took over control of that Zoom meeting and had horrendous content then projected onto it. After investigation, that wasn't the case. None of our accounts were compromised. And in fact, it was because of the permissiveness of some of the Administrative Hearings Office hearings. The ability for individuals to unmute or come off camera, as you just heard from my script, was something that we ensured we didn't have, so we didn't have Zoom bombings early on when we transitioned to Zoom. That permissiveness, again, allowed individuals to overwhelm and have a coordinated attack on the Zoom platform during the hearing. We've since now had staff training and importantly are going to be doing yearly reviews of all proceedings before the boards in order to ensure that that level of security is always met. Unfortunately, we're simply in a time when we can't trust the individuals that may come to a hearing in an attempt to disrupt or otherwise not allow for the sort of discourse and again, in the quality of discourse that we've all come to appreciate here at the board. So I just want to ensure and apologize to individuals that had to experience that. It was incredibly unfortunate and disturbing, and ultimately, again, doesn't meet the standard of the hearings and the work and discussions we've conducted here before the board. So just wanted to make sure and address that here at the top. And again, appreciate everyone's continued participation here at the board. It's for all the many hours of discussion and hearing that we've had here, it is just one opportunity or one moment here that erodes that trust. And so know that I'm here to continue to ensure that we create the space to be able to have very difficult discussions, but in a way that is respectful and ultimately non-disruptive. And unfortunate that we have individuals that purposely try to disrupt our proceedings that way. With that said, I can now actually would like to look to our Chief Counsel, Mr. Lawfer, before we get into public forum. He has a few comments to make.
Thank you very much, Chair Esquivel. And specifically, what I wanted to flag for both the board members so they have awareness, as well as for some of the people who will be addressing the board this morning during public forum. We did have several registrants for the public forum who indicated a desire to speak on the Delta Conveyance Project proceeding that's pending before the Administrative Hearings Office. I had an exchange this morning with counsel for Restore the Delta just to kind of clarify, because as the board members and the participants in that proceeding are aware, there is generally a prohibition on ex parte communications that prevents persons interested in that proceeding from addressing the board, the advisors to the board, and the AHO outside of a noticed proceeding for the Delta Conveyance Project issue. And it extends to issues within that hearing. There is the ability to communicate, though, on issues that are procedural or are not issues in the proceeding. And one that both Chair Esquivel has already identified and I confirmed with counsel for the Restore the Delta that they're interested in raising is the Zoom bombing incident. So that's an appropriate issue with respect to the public forum today. So I appreciate if people limit it to that. And then there's one other issue, which is several of the participants in that proceeding have filed a motion to cancel the water rights of the Department of Water Resources that would be used to support that. The cancellation, what the Administrative Hearings Office has previously ruled is that that is outside the scope delegated to the AHO. As a result, it's not presently an issue within that proceeding. However, and this is, again, a point that I made with counsel for Restore the Delta, and I think there's a meeting of the minds on this, is there are certain cross-cutting issues, of course, underlying what was within that motion that continue to be pending on some of the other issues within the DCP hearing. So to the extent that people are interested in talking about that motion today, they really need to focus on issues that are unique to the motion, perhaps calls for the board to take up that motion outside of the AHO process, and that would be fine for within the public forum today as well. So I just ask folks to be mindful of those restrictions. We're all trying to adhere to the important due process protections that protect the interests of all the parties, including those who are here in public forum today, as well as all the other water right holders, members of the public, tribes, and applicants who have a due process interest in the ongoing proceeding before the AHO, and try to keep issues in that proceeding focused in the noticed meetings for that. So with that, Chair Esquivel, I'll return it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Loffer. I have here, I believe, the order in which individuals have requested to speak here at public forum. But since this seems to be organized, I would just look to folks if you have an order that you would like to be proceeding in front of. And otherwise, I can simply begin by calling names. Okay, then I will begin first with Spencer Fern.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. My name is Spencer Fern, and I am the Delta Science Program Manager with Restore the Delta. It is well known that the current conditions in the Delta have led to undue stress on frontline Delta communities due to poor water quality conditions. You have issues like harmful algal blooms that can raise public health concerns from contact with contaminated water, as well as the possible aerosolization of harmful toxins, which can exacerbate asthma or other respiratory illnesses. We have been notified by doctors serving populations in Discovery Bay of reported illnesses thought to be associated with those aerosolized harmful algal blooms, and research has not yet been funded for this possible link, and there is a definite need for more research on that front. We're seeing potentially 3 consecutive years of closed fishing seasons due to low numbers of salmon returning from the mismanagement of Delta outflow, which eliminates a source of sustenance for those fishermen who need to put food on the table, as well as impacting tribes who have a significant cultural connection to the salmon populations. Public access to the Delta has become increasingly restricted due to poor water quality conditions, preventing several beneficial uses throughout the Delta, and this mismanagement of this public trust resource by the State Water Board definitely needs a strong correction. The Bay Delta Plan needs to be updated and, quite frankly, should have been updated decades ago. Instead, the board is prioritizing the request of the same water exporters, causing harm and incomplete water projects, as well as backroom deals like the voluntary agreements. Without an updated Bay Delta plan with numeric objectives in place, we are already seeing undue harm to the communities in the Delta. The State Water Board has an obligation to the people of California over the interests of water exports, but something seems to have been lost in translation because the current project proposals kind of show the opposite of that obligation. The State Water Board needs to get their priorities in order and update the Bay Delta Plan with a built-in updates every 3 years as originally intended, and spend less time on wasteful infrastructure planning. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Fern. Next, I'd like to call up Morgan Snyder, be followed by Artie Valencia.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. Thank you so much for this opportunity to comment today. My name is Morgan Snyder, and I am the policy analyst for Restore the Delta. I'm here today to speak on closed agenda item 1 related to the ongoing water rights change petition for the Delta Conveyance Project that is currently within the Water Board's authority and not the AHO. As noted in our March 19th motion to cancel the proceeding, Water Code Section 1701.4 clearly states that if the petitioner fails to supply information requested by the AHO, the hearing shall be canceled. DWR has had ample opportunity and time to provide the information requested by the AHO that is essential for the petition before the board, but now have failed twice to meet these deadlines. DWR claims that a longer timeframe is needed to compile this information, but this is not a new request. In fact, our partner at California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance requested this information in 2010, 15 years ago, for a related proceeding, and never obtained these records. The AHO has made it clear that she does not hold the authority to cancel these proceedings, so we come before the board today to implore you to act swiftly on the motion before you. Giving DWR preferential treatment sets a poor and inequitable precedent. The facts are that DWR has repeatedly failed to meet the request of the AHO for key information central to this proceeding. Pushing the deadline out while continuing the proceeding provides an incomplete picture and puts environmental justice groups at a disadvantage. The procedural elements of this case are inherently flawed, inequitable, and are causing further harm to already disadvantaged groups. We implore you to act on the request submitted to you on March 19th before further irreparable harm is done, and end the special treatment for DWR when they fail to comply with the water code. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Next, I'd like to call up Artie Valencia, be followed by Mackenzie Owens, and then Sarah Medina.
Good morning, Chair Escobar and members of the board. My name is Artie Valencia, and I am the Flood and Land Restoration Manager here at Restore the Delta. While we understand the board has been making progress towards updating the Bay Delta Plan for decades now, so long the board continues to consider the voluntary agreements, community concerns are not being addressed. The board should be concerned about the future of California water, given the instability of current federal administration that is committed to violate any regulations to increase Delta exports. Adopting voluntary agreements with an unstable federal government is like drawing a contract with an unstable partner. While the voluntary agreement intends to support habitat restoration, it fails to account for the necessary water flow needed excuse me, for restoration to be successful. Without numeric flow objectives, proper water quality cannot be achieved, and you cannot expect an ecosystem that is dependent on its natural resources to recover. Adequate freshwater flow is essential for sustaining the Delta ecosystem. It supports species like salmon and Delta smelt, which rely on specific flow patterns for survival. Without proper flow standards, habitat restoration projects are being ineffective. Water quality is another critical factor that can't be ignored. Rising salinity levels due to reduced freshwater inflow are already damaging the system. Poor water quality undermines restoration efforts, making it harder to support life. Furthermore, water infrastructure projects intending to divert a significant amount of water will only exacerbate the problem, contributing to declining water quality and weakening the levees that protect the region. Outdated water quality standards have led to a deteriorating delta, decimating an annual delta economy of over $7 billion. Inaction from the board has prevented the kind of aspirational large-scale restoration projects needed to revitalize the delta's ecosystem. So without a Bay Delta plan that prioritizes restoring the delta, it's impossible to address the full scope of challenges facing the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valencia. Next, I'd like to call up, one second. Mackenzie Owens, be followed by Sarah Medina, and then Eric Buescher.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. I'm Mackenzie Owens, the Youth and Outreach Program Manager with Restore the Delta. I'd like to take this opportunity to discuss concerns regarding the board's authority to address security concerns regarding the meeting host platforms in general. The public process overall has been impacted because of the harmful and shameful Zoom bombing during the meeting last Monday, as mentioned this morning. First, we need the board to clarify whether the Zoom account has the government account operating system for all current meetings and hearings moving forward in the future. We raised the concern about current security measures if the Zoom account has being used for future hearings is not the most secure platform available to a government agency. With the work we have been doing as an organization, both in person and online, the setbacks that have occurred will require further time to rebuild community trust and relationships as a whole. We are not being given the reassurance we need to reorganize our communities. Thus, that takes time, that takes relationship building, that takes bonding, and understanding this process. We ask that you reflect on this whole process and what has been impacted and how that can be remedied in a just fashion. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Sarah Medina, be followed by Eric Buescher, and then Jeff Ellsworth.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and members of the board. My name is Sarah Medina, and I'm the Sustainable Agriculture and Land Manager at Restore the Delta. I'm here not only to highlight the need of proper update Bay Delta Plan, but also to share with the Water Board the damage it has caused Delta farmers by failing to update the plan. Water quality standards, the current water quality standards are nearly 29 years out of date, and failure to update them will have irreversible consequences on our land, water, crops, and local economy. Any progress that the board has made on the update to the Bay Delta Plan is set back by the board's consideration for voluntary agreements. At stake is an annual Delta economy of over $7 billion, supporting 38% of the 1.8 million jobs in the region as detailed in the Economic Sustainability Plan by the Delta Protection Commission. This revenue also includes $1.5 billion from the salmon fish industry and $780 million from recreation, all of which are being damaged by outdated standards. Without clear water quality protections, overpumping will lead to an increased salinity and raising water temperatures, harming crop yields, degrading soil, and fueling toxic algal blooms. Invasive species will thrive, adding operational costs for farmers who must eradicate them and repair levee damages. To put it plainly, the Bay Delta Plan has needed an update for as long as I've been alive. That's close to 30 years. Rather than complying with its obligation to balance all water needs, the board has catered to water exports through incomplete voluntary agreements, while failing to uphold its duty to California people. The State Water Board must realign its priorities, update the Bay Delta Plan with mandated 3-year reviews as required by law, before proceeding with hearing destructive infrastructure planning. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to comment.
Thank you for those comments, Ms. Medina. Next, I'd like to call Eric Buscher, be followed by Jeff Ellsworth, and then Max Gomberg.
Thank you, Chair Escobar. My name is Eric Buscher. I'm the managing attorney at San Francisco Baykeeper.
And I believe, Mr. Buscher, you are either not on the platform or have not come off.
And Mr.
camera when
Buscher,
invited.
we can hear you. We could see that you unmuted, but it appeared maybe you might have a different audio source that you're using for your microphone. Next to the Zoom microphone, there's a little caret that points up. We saw your lips moving. We saw you unmuted, but we couldn't hear you.
Give me a second.
Yeah, if as Mr. Loffer said, if you click that small up arrow next to the audio button, you can select another microphone, and that might be able to fix you because you are unmuted on the platform.
And can you hear me now?
Still not.
Still nothing?
If you can hold on one moment, Mr. Buscher.
I can hear him,
it appears
Chair
that there's
Escobar.
actually an audio problem in the room because I can hear him coming across Zoom on my laptop.
Okay.
So if we can pause for a second.
Yeah, one moment. We're having audio issues here in the room, Mr. Buscher. One second. Thank you.
And I'll apologize to folks in the room. What's going on is this is the first day that this room has been used using a new platform and technology. And so our AV folks are back in the booth. AV folks, are you able to make sure that we can broadcast out the audio into the room?
What we'll do while we figure out how to ensure that the audio from the Zoom platform is here in the room is we'll continue with folks in the room speaking. So apologies to those on the platform. We'll be able to resolve this momentarily. Next, then we'll call up Max Gomberg, who'll be followed by Michael Frost and then Barbara Berrigan-Perea. And good morning.
Good morning, Chair Escobar, board members. My name is Max Gomberg. I'm here today speaking both as an advisor to the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians and as a concerned citizen. Our country is being run by evil people who in less than 3 months have crippled many pillars of our government that were dedicated to civil rights, public health, environmental protection, and due process. The list of atrocities is long and growing, and someday the perpetrators will be held accountable for their crimes, just as the Nazis were held accountable during the Nuremberg trials. Scholars of authoritarian regimes offer important insights into how they can be slowed, disrupted, and defeated. One piece of advice they stress is this: do not obey in advance. Do not allow them to seize power and commit harms uncontested. This board has the ability to use its authorities to prevent some of the environmental and civil rights harms the federal government and its allies aim to enact and exacerbate in California. The board could, for example, resolve a civil rights complaint that has been pending for months. It could take proactive steps to ensure that federal water managers follow state law, and it could adopt and enforce restrictions on harmful Central Valley Project operations via the Bay Delta Plan. The board could also demonstrate what a commitment to due process and racial equity look like in formal proceedings. In water rights matters assigned to the Administrative Hearings Office, for example, the board could direct that policy statements be made during a board meeting or board workshop prior to the commencement of evidentiary hearings to ensure that tribal representatives and community members have equal and timely opportunity to address the board. In addition, the board can stand firm against political interference that undermines its independence and its trustee duties on behalf of the environment. One way to do this is by acting on petitions in a timely manner and providing a transparent justification for its decisions. The board cannot approve requests from the governor or any other officials if they are contrary to the board's responsibilities under the law. When I was a state water board staff member during the first Trump administration, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency wrote a letter to the governor accusing the water boards of various instances of noncompliance with federal statute and threatening enforcement action. Under Mr. Laufer's expert guidance, we worked hard to refute all of the letter's false accusations and sent a letter back demonstrating that the state would not capitulate to lies and unsubstantiated assertions of federal authority. In the past few weeks, we have witnessed law firms and universities fold in the face of federal aggression, while others are courageously speaking up and fighting back. A handful of members of Congress and governors are doing their part to defend democracy. Our governor, sadly, is not among them, but you don't have to follow his lead. As an agency that is committed to racial equity, you can do better. Do not obey in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gomberg. Next, I'd like to call up Michael Frost, be followed by Barbara Berrigan-Perea, and then Roger Mammon.
Good morning. My name is Michael Frost. I'm a father, an environmental activist, and I teach my two girls that biodiversity is the real wealth of this planet. No matter what we do in our day-to-day lives to make money and get by, if we don't have that basic level of biodiversity, we're in real trouble. And this is an existential issue. And I make it clear to them, and I've brought them with me multiple times to testify in front of the water board, mostly against the Delta tunnels. And what I want to talk about today is the process for public participation in this highly charged political atmosphere. There was an in-person meeting, there wasn't an in-person meeting, that everyone's on Zoom, and we were able to witness a security breach that was truly obscene. And I'm incredibly lucky that I didn't have my 11-year-old daughter sitting right next to me to witness that. So we dodged a bullet there. But it feels as if public participation is being suppressed, and that doesn't feel good. When we tie that into an unholy alliance between Newsom and Trump, we have a real problem. And that unholy alliance really smells bad. Putting all this together, it feels bad for democracy and for public participation. That's what we stand for, and that's what we say we stand for. That's what's in writing for what we stand for. Doesn't seem to be playing out. And we will not be silenced, and we will not be suppressed. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Barbara Berrigan-Perea, be followed by Roger Mammon.
Good morning, Chair Esquivel and board members, and good morning to board staff. I wanted my staff to mostly, and most of them got through, a few people are going to go after me, to speak first, because I think we are at a pivotal moment with where processes are with the board. We have so many issues before you. We have a resolution for a Title VI complaint that has been sitting with this board for 4 months now. We have decades-old problems around the Bay Delta Plan being finished. We have, our tribal partners have asked for tribal beneficial uses to be resolved by this board for years now. Harmful algal blooms, we have asked for this public health standard for the waterways to be set by the board following US EPA guidance. That is still not completed. But meanwhile, as Spencer alluded to, we are now getting complaints about potential public health issues, doctors contacting us, and we're going after research dollars to find out what is going on. I understand and I hear you, Chair Esquivel, when you say that you are proud of the public forum you've created. And I do agree, you are all extremely cordial people. We respect you all. We have tried to use processes to work with you with dignity and respect and goodwill. But there's a point where talk doesn't matter and it has to be action. The talk only goes so far. The motion to dismiss before you is because of inaction by the Department of Water Resources since 2009. The Title VI complaint has been before you for 4 months. The issues that I've raised around the completion of the Bay Delta Plan without the voluntary agreements, but with real protective standards that were inclusive about people, are front and center. The unfortunate incident of March 24th, we do not believe is anybody's direct fault here. But what we do feel is that you should have been prepared for the worst in this political climate. Case in point, look at what happened to you just a few minutes ago with technology. We're going to offer you a pro tip from a small organization that has to do a lot of stuff online. When we run a forum, we do a dry rehearsal. When we do a press conference, we do a dry rehearsal. We flub up all our technology. We treat it like theater. You all are in charge of that process. Before these hearings go forward, you should be doing a dry rehearsal on the technology so that the participants know how to work it, so you've worked out your kinks for what's happening in the room. There are processes that you can put into place actively to make sure that we are considered in that due process. I heard about due process for the protestants this morning, but I'm not seeing in action where due process happens for the people of the Delta, the tribes, and for Californians who are not part of special water interests. And that is what has to change with this board. Max Gomberg is right. This is about small d democratic processes being upheld by this board. Whether it's in timeliness of rulings, getting plans in and addressed, or how you run your processes. We respect you. We will continue to work with you. But we are irritated, and rightfully so. And it's not just words. It's got to be action. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berrigan-Perea. And just for the record, those dry runs do happen, and appreciate your recommendation, though. Next, I'd like to call up Roger Mammon and be followed by Ashley Castaneda.
Chair Escobar, while Mr. Mammon is coming up, can I ask either Board Member McGuire or Vice Chair Diadamo to speak just to see if the AV team has fixed the issue going on in the room?
Everything's fine on my end. Thank you.
Still hasn't been resolved. Yeah. Mr. Mammon.
Good morning, Chair Escobar and members of the board. My name is Roger Mammon. I am a resident of Oakley, California. I'm the president of the West Delta chapter of the California Striped Bass Association, a board member of the Lower Sherman Island Duck Hunters Association. I'm here today to raise concerns on how the board is making it difficult for concerned citizens, especially seniors, to participate in making policy statements. I have been told that many seniors did not receive emails confirming participation. They didn't fill out the intent to appear correctly, and that the instructions were confusing. Those that were on the list to make policy statements were unable to do so due to the Zoom bombing. At first, the hearing was going to be held hybrid here in Sacramento and online. And some people that I know were making carpools to appear in person before the board. Then just a few days before the hearing, the board answered multiple requests for clarification from protestants, and the hearing was solely on Zoom. The Zoom platform was not made secure. Only certain people received the March 28th email about future meetings. I was not one of them. Who gets emailed information from the board is not consistent. The board is being paid and needs to keep in mind that people making policy statements are not. They took time to enroll, prepare presentations, and alter their daily lives, as well as missing a day of work to appear and participate. In fact, some of the participants have been driven away by the process because they feel it is too cumbersome and suppresses democracy. The board must ensure that the public has normalized policy statements, periods, equal to those afforded the governor, DWR, and water contractors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mammon. And I do want to make sure and be clear, as I understand from the Administrative Hearings Office, that hearing was always a virtual one. At no point was it communicated that it would be hybrid, but I appreciate your points and hear your frustration. Next, I'd like to call up Ashley Castaneda.
Hello, Chair Escobar and Board. My name is Ashley Castaneda, and I am the Communications Coordinator for Restore the Delta. As someone who recently had the opportunity to graduate with a bachelor's degree, I understand the importance of education and equity for those that are striving to make a difference in their lives and their communities. Our team is committed to educating the public so that they are empowered to advocate for the restoration of our Delta waterways. This includes organizing and guiding them through the nuances of proper public hearing procedures, and today I'm here to speak on matters that are within the board's purview and not the AHO. The Zoom bombing incident at the March 24th hearing was deeply hurtful to the public process. Governmental agencies depend on reputable and trusted organizations like Restore the Delta to educate and conduct community outreach. In preparation for the March 24th hearing, my team and I dedicated countless hours to organizing and reaching out to local Delta community members to ensure that their voices were heard. Despite directing people to the Water Board's website for information on how to engage, we ultimately had to take the reins in providing clear instructions on how to make a comment reservation. We even created a step-by-step video shared across social media to guide community members through the process. Yet, we continue to receive messages such as, "I'm confused, what party should I put down?" And the procedures were all in all just not there for the public engagement and proceedings, and before the AHO are not accessible and needs to be addressed. Following the Zoom bombing incident, the public was left without any notice for 2 hours, while our team was able to provide an update within 20 minutes via multiple media platforms. We still to this day continue to receive numerous questions and comments that are regarding the individuals still seeking answers about that incident. many of which we are still unable to answer and still have no answers to. And this is just unacceptable. The board has a responsibility to ensure all proceedings open for public engagement are safe and any incidents that occur are properly addressed, including providing a report documenting the incident, explaining why the incident happened, how the board intends to remedy the incident, and provide adequate time to disperse that information to individuals. I have lived near the Delta waterways my entire life. Restore the Delta takes pride in being a leading educator and advocate for Delta communities. It is time for this board to uphold its responsibility to the public, ensure transparent and accessible processes, and resolve the outstanding issues that continue to destroy everyone's trust in this system. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today.
And thank you for those comments, Ms. Castaneda. Looking to our clerk and folks if the Zoom issues were resolved.
We're going to go ahead and try once again if we could have the vice chair or board member McGuire just try their microphone.
Testing.
Great.
Thank you all. Appreciate the patience. Next, then would like to call up Eric Buscher, be followed by Jeff Ellsworth, and then Regina Chigazola.
Thank you, Chair Escobar. My name is Eric Buscher. I'm the managing attorney at San Francisco Baykeeper. I first want to emphasize the comments that have been made by prior individuals related to the hearing on March 24th. I appreciate, Chair Escobar, your comments and the hearing officer's response from 2 days after the events. But I am concerned, like others, that absent a complete, transparent, and public accounting of the causes and responses to those events, we will not solve the problem that Zoom bomb caused. Over 50 members of the public were signed up to participate on March 24th, before the evidentiary portions of the hearing related to the DCP were set to begin. They were prevented from doing so. And there is currently not a plan or a response to allow those members of the public to proceed prior to the start of evidence. I appreciate the staff training and yearly reviews that Chair Escobar you described, but staff trainings and yearly reviews are inadequate in the face of what happened a week and a half ago. And all of this needs to happen before further proceedings inviting public comment can be trusted by members of the community to go forward. Second, I want to emphasize the prior comments that have been made about the necessity to update the Bay Delta Plan. Now, we've been told that the Delta Conveyance Project water rights is currently the board's highest priority. And if that's the case, that prioritization represents a failure of the board to meet its legal obligations to protect beneficial uses, to protect fisheries, water quality, and communities, especially in the Delta. And finally, I would like to emphasize the importance of the board taking action quickly to ensure that the proceedings before the AHO occur with integrity, without outside political influence or pressure, and in a manner that is consistent with the Water Code. That the governor happens to support this project does not mean that the rules that apply to the Department of Water Resources are somehow different than those that apply to any other applicant seeking changed or new water rights. Water Code Section 1701.3 allows the board or the hearing officer to order that relevant and necessary information be provided by a party seeking a change in its water rights. The hearing officer made that initial order last fall and has reiterated its propriety on at least 2 occasions since then. And yet, as recently as DWR's letter to this board yesterday, DWR appears to continue to believe it should not have to provide the information that the AHO has deemed relevant and necessary to the proceedings. Water Code Section 1701.4 provides that when an applicant fails to comply with a request for information under 1701.3, the board shall cancel the petition. That's where we stand now. That's the matter that's before the board now. And I would urge the board to act quickly and decisively to ensure the integrity of this process, to ensure that the protesting parties are not prejudiced by DWR's failure to comply with the AHO's orders, and to ensure that DWR does not receive different or special treatment based on the political preferences of the executive branch in California. The board should stand up for its own authority and independence, for the independence of the administrative hearing officer and office, and for the integrity, lawfulness, and equity of water rights proceedings. And it should do so quickly and decisively in granting the requests and motions to cancel DWR's petitions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Buescher. Next, I'd like to call up Jeff Ellsworth, be followed by Regina Chicazola, and then Gary Bobker.
Hello, is my audio coming through?
It is. Thank you, Mr. Ellsworth.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Esquivel, Water Board and staff. Jeff Ellsworth here, former mayor of St. Helena, Napa County, 2018 to 2022. I appreciate your continuing to hear these comments, my comments on the concerns related to wastewater contamination impacts and other impacts to Latino waste workers at Clover Flat Landfill, Upper Valley Disposal Service in Napa County, which I've inventoried here these last months. I would like to again commend your commitment to racial equity in presenting the Water Board Racial Equity Action Plan on March 4th, a plan that combined with current state and federal laws can be implemented towards correcting systemic and institutional racism that hinders the full realization of civil rights for all. But I continue to highlight what appears to be a disconnect between this plan and relevant laws with the very real concerns related to the wastewater contamination impacts and, as I mentioned, other impacts to Latino waste workers at Clover Flat Landfill and Upper Valley Disposal in Napa County. You may ask why the Water Board is so critical in all this and why I keep speaking here. It's because the Water Board is the primary boots on the ground oversight agency that can actually recognize environmental and civil rights concerns in real time. And many public agencies, including Cal EPA, Cal Fish and Wildlife, and the County of Napa, defer to field reports from the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Board, often with no other corroboration. While these other agencies may not regularly be going to the UVDS waste sites, the regional water board inspectors are, and their reports are often the first and last word whether problems are considered. If there is a mistake, it goes all the way up the chain. And mistakes have been made, particularly related to Latino worker impacts, fires, and wastewater containment. Recent findings by the Regional Water Board in these matters, unfortunately, did not include all relevant documentation, did not include necessary sworn testimony, and did not interview key witnesses. There are also hydrologic and combustion science realities of the situation of a fire-prone industrial garbage plant situated in what seasonally alternates between a floodplain and proximity to CAL FIRE recognized high wildfire risk areas that cannot be dismissed. I'm not just speaking theoretically or from what I read. I worked at these waste sites in the 1980s and have visited them countless times as a community member and elected official. It only takes the naked eye to see the problem of unavoidably commingled, uncontainable wastewaters and fire impacts at these sites that also impact the workers. In recognizing communities of color as the Water Board Racial Equity Plan does, how does this not extend to the primarily Latino workforce of Upper Valley Disposal Service that fall under direct oversight of the Regional Water Board, who physically observe these human workers every time their inspectors are on site? What we are talking about are well-cataloged, systemic, illegal hiring practices by UVDS and Clover Flat Landfill of undocumented workers over decades who are then abused into subhuman working conditions, including servitude or peonage type conditions, all under local government contract and for the economic benefit of one private company. It is as vile and reprehensible a betrayal of public trust and civil rights protections as can be imagined, the details of which can be found in the current federal level lawsuit against UVDS by its workers, with information also submitted to the U.S. Justice Department. Further, the long-term intimidation into silence of these Latino workers and their co-workers by Upper Valley Disposal Service puts the entire Napa County community and surrounding counties at risk, not only of fire and contamination impacts, but of systemic civil rights abuses. When we fail to protect the most vulnerable of our population, we fail the entire population. With what is occurring now nationally, it's more critical than ever to recognize this. In these efforts, we continue to work with LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, whose 2024 resolution on UVDS worker impacts carries over to 2025. Finally, the commitment to racial equity and protection of civil rights is up to all of us and each of us on a day-to-day basis. Again, I ask for this matter to be agendized in hearings with sworn testimony. I'm available to participate in such testimony, and I thank you for hearing these comments.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Ellsworth. Next, I'd like to call up Regina Chigazola, be followed by Gary Bob Kerr, Maria Loritzen, and I believe then our last commenter will be Cynthia Cortez.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. And thank you for hearing from me today. First, I wanted to say, excuse the mess behind me. First, I wanted to say that I want to support what everyone has said before me. The need for safe public spaces is something we've brought up a lot in commenting spaces. We've brought up a lot in the creation of the racial equity resolution and racial equity action plan. And I think that this issue is across the board. Last night, I attended a North Coast Water Board meeting on their racial equity action plan. And even though we had commented on the plan and resolution for years, we actually had not been noticed that they were going to be having an agenda item about the plan. We luckily had gotten a call about a different issue from the board and were able to attend. But I think the outreach and informational efforts of the board are lacking. And I know the board is trying very hard, and I thank you. Like Barbara said, you are all really great people who are easy to talk to, but in the end, it shouldn't really fall on organizations like Restore the Delta or Save California Salmon to get the word out on how to engage or to have to explain complicated systems that don't feel safe to people. We've brought this up a lot where this is an issue in the Bay Delta hearing, but this has been also a really big issue in the North State when we come into rural areas where people of color don't feel safe going into the spaces. So I do urge you to address these issues. And I'd also like to repeat that the reason why it's extremely important that California agencies address this issues now is that we no longer do have the protection of the federal government, which has been brought up many times. You know, our environmental laws are under attack, diversity is under attack, people of color are under attack. People are being deported when they're allowed to be here legally. And if we don't make sure that we have safe spaces for people to engage, there's not going to be engagement. I'm on tribal issues alone, thinking about the fact that of what the trustee has done to tribes just over the last few months really show the needs for leadership from this board, even if it does mean taking on very powerful political people within California like Gavin Newsom, who seems to not be standing up to the Trump administration. So with that, I think I can leave it there. The few other issues I wanted to talk about today, besides the Delta Tunnel hearing and hearings in general and how they have, I mean, I feel like the Sites Reservoir hearings and the way that it's been addressed also hasn't been great. Obviously, there was no major issues like this, but ultimately the Sites Authority is not addressing or even paying attention to tribal water rights. And if tribes try to testify to their rights, they are brutally cross-examined by the Sites Authority. And these are not safe spaces for people when you have to deal with those kind of issues. And then finally, the other thing that I wanted to address is that I feel like while you're thinking about how to create safe spaces and how to actually enact the racial equity action plan, and I know you all are, and I thank you for that, there are these key proceedings that are just getting stalled and stalled because of political issues. One of them is making sure that the Department of Water Resources is actually providing the information necessary. One is the Bay Delta plan, but even when you leave the Bay Delta, the same is true. The Scott and Shasta flows process, this is going really slowly, and we're hearing that there's political interference behind the scene asking for the process to go slowly. But we need things to be moving, like the salmon numbers have never been less. People are coming to the board saying that they're getting sick from contact with water or even breathing aerosols from water. It's just really a time for the board to take action, not just to create safe spaces for public comment, but also to make it so that our water is safe and that our salmon don't go extinct. And I just would urge the board to act with the urgency that this moment does demand of the board. And I know you all are hardworking, good people who want solutions. So I look forward to working with you and trying to figure out what those solutions could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chickazzola. Appreciate the comments and definitely look forward to continuing to work with you on all of these things. Next, I'd like to call up Gary Bobker, be followed by Maria Loretzen, and then Cynthia Cortez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Gary Bobker, the program director at Friends of the River. Can you hear me fine?
We can. Thank you. Good morning.
Great. Thanks. I'm going to be brief because most of the points I want to make have been touched on by previous speakers. The first and foremost issue is that I want to touch on is urging the board to act quickly and decisively on the request from a number of the protestants, including Friends of the River, to consider cancellation of the Delta conveyance proceeding. And, you know, this is, as previous speakers have said, you know, this is an issue outside of the scope of the AHO's authority, which is why we're speaking to you about it. The AHO has clearly identified the need for supplemental information, which is critical to the resolution of major outstanding issues in that proceeding and necessary in order to be able to actually make a decision on issuing a permit. The failure to do so is a continuing problem. And as a result, I think the board really needs to consider whether it's appropriate at this time to proceed with that permitting process. As a famous saying goes, there is never enough time to do it right, but there is always enough time to do it over. And that is a problem that we have had before with agencies trying to proceed with projects when there is insufficient information or insufficient analysis. In this case, the missing information is critical. It will not be supplied before much of DWR's case in chief is presented, and that has major implications for the ability of protestants to address the issue as well as the AHO. In addition, there are other parallel issues outside of the DCP. First and foremost, as others have referred to, the Water Quality Control Plan update itself and the urgency to protect beneficial uses for fish and wildlife and for public health that are at risk of not only degradation, but potentially being extinguished. And the fact that the resolution of issues around the Water Quality Control Plan and other things will, in essence, provide much of the foundation and bookends for the permitting of projects like the DCP. So again, the sequencing is pretty important, and I urge you to consider our request seriously and act in a timely fashion since we're about to get started. You know, secondly, you know, some people have referred to the, you know, the governor's letter and other communications to the board urging you to proceed with the project. Obviously, the DCP is not a project that is universally supported. There is major opposition to it. And part of the ability to convey that opposition is through the DCP proceeding. The recent proceedings that we've been talking about, I mean, I'm no expert on security. I have no recommendations to you. I think you've heard from others on that. But what I was impressed with was, you know, the effort of protestant parties and others to facilitate the voices of public participants, of average citizens in the Delta, et cetera, and the effect that the recent events had on them. So, you know, I urge you to be cautious and get your ducks in a row, and really do what you can to reach out to those communities so that they, as Regina said, feel safe in these proceedings. It's really important that those voices be heard, and I know that you're sensitive to that. And I urge you to take that into account when you think about the sequencing of going forward, to make sure that those voices are heard before we get too deep into proceedings, and secondly, that people are assured that it's a safe space to participate in. With that, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bobker. I appreciate those comments. Good to see you this morning. Next,
too.
I'd like to call up Mariah Lauritsen, be followed by Cynthia Cortez.
Hello, I'm Mariah Lauritsen, and I am with the Golden State Salmon Association. I represent the salmon industry, which, when healthy, supports $1.4 billion in economic activity and 23,000 jobs in California. The salmon in California are dying, despite being an integral part of our history. Californians cannot eat California salmon in California. We are at a point where decisions must be made to restore the history and culture of California and safeguard our California treasures for future generations. We need urgency and we need leadership. The Bay Delta Plan needs to be updated. It's long overdue. It shows a neglect to the people of California that has not been updated. And the lack of an update comes at great cost. It sets the stage for degradation of the environment. It sets the stage for continued uncertainty and inability to plan for the future. We are seeing right now what the creation of chaos and uncertainty at the federal level produces in disrupting democratic processes. Chaos in the Bay Delta process and uncertainty caused by lack of timely updates to the Bay Delta Plan have a similar effect on the protections of beneficial uses and protections of our California communities. I hope that the board will act with urgency and will show leadership in pushing these priorities forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lauritsen. Next, and I believe this is our final commenter, I'd like to call up Cynthia Cortez.
Good morning, Chair Escobar and members of the board. Trying not to knock it down. My name is Cynthia Cortez. I'm the Policy Program Manager with Restore the Delta. First, I just want to quickly address a comment that you made, Chair Escobar. There was significant representation from private interest during the first virtual hearing that was held by the AHO. And the fact that the hearing on March 24th was only being heard virtually is part of the problem, because all members of the public should have equal opportunity to address the AHO. So I just really want to quickly elevate that all members of the public should have equal opportunity. But for my comment, the future of the Delta faces a lot more uncertainty today than it did 3 to 5 months ago. The communities that rely on healthy waterways are more at risk today than they were 3 and 5 months ago. And that is if the board does not step up and take action to protect the Delta's most vulnerable communities. The board has before it the opportunity to uphold its commitment to protect, restore, and enhance California water by correcting historic injustices to communities and tribes, injustices that persist in California water management today. The livelihood of Delta communities is under threat. Their health, their jobs, their homes, their spiritual and cultural wellness are all under threat by deteriorating water quality that is depleting our rivers of fish for sustenance and commercial fishing. It is deteriorating recreation that is having a trickling effect on local Delta economy, and weakening levees that surround and protect thousands of homes, schools, and businesses, just to name a few. This threat is exacerbated by unstable federal partners, weakening environmental regulations, harmful water infrastructure proposals that prioritize water exports, and attempts to undermine the Water Board's authority in the voluntary agreements, and we're seeing it in the legislature as well. The disparate impacts felt by communities of colors and tribes as a result of the State Water Board's failure to update the water quality standards in a timely manner for the Bay Delta plan still persist, and the exclusion of communities, particularly communities of color and tribes, from their exclusion from decision-making processes in setting water quality standards for the Bay Delta plan still persist as well. Before the board is the Delta Tribal Environmental Coalition's Title VI complaint, and the board has dragged its feet on it. Actions speak louder than words, and until we see pen to paper and a resolution to that Title VI complaint, the board is upholding racist California history and exclusionary harmful processes. We understand that the board has been working in an update to the Bay Delta plan for decades, and there are harmful proposals that may also take up to decades. But resolving the Title VI complaint is something that the board can act on today. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
And thank you for those comments, Ms. Cortez. Just want to, and I believe that's all our public forum commenters. I just want to thank everyone who's raised their voice here and addressed the board this morning. As I said here at the top, I take very personally the responsibility I have here as chair, but also in holding the public seat and ensuring that there is open, transparent, and ultimately safe spaces here to be able to debate and have discussions that are of great importance to the state and to our communities. And so I take incredibly personally that responsibility. And again, we didn't meet that measure and the permissiveness that was allowed, the openness, if you will, of the meeting at the AHO. And so I just want to, again, just thank everyone for their comments here. Know that I take that role incredibly seriously, and we will continue to follow up and continue to build back. I know trust that has been eroded there. And again, hope folks look at the record of this board and its ability to have conducted many difficult discussions. And unfortunately, it is this balance between ease of access, openness, and then ultimately, though, trust. And it's that latter part that we simply have to continue to work at and not create barriers, but also limit those opportunities for those that would disrupt and otherwise not allow for the fair and even discussion that we know we're all looking to have. So just really thank everyone for your words this morning, your continued engagement with this board, and know that I continue to look to live up to the standards that I set for ourselves and here myself at the board. So thank you. And thank you all as well to our incredible staff here for holding on through public forum. I wanted to prioritize the commenters here, given I know the frustration and the need to be able to hear out what are significant concerns out there. So thank you. And that concludes public forum. And now brings us now to our Superior Accomplishment Awards. And believe we have a series of 5 of them here. And so I believe our first will be presented by David Ceccarelli, and would welcome him up.
Morning, Board Chair, Joaquin Escobar, and fellow board members. My name is David Ceccarelli. I'm the Chief of the Fee and Revenue Branch within the Division of Administrative Services. It's my pleasure today to present the Sustained Superior Accomplishment Award to Sarah Fong. Sarah is a mainstay in the Fee and Revenue Branch, who provides a wealth of historic and current knowledge of our Water Board's fee policies and invoicing process. Sarah provides exceptional customer service and has gone above and beyond to support the tens of thousands of regulated dischargers who are invoiced annually, including supporting other state and regional board staff with invoicing questions and resolving complex fee issues. Anyone that has worked in a customer service environment knows it can be challenging at times. And during these intense demand, Sarah is attentive to customers' needs, responds timely to inquiries, makes the customers feel valued and respected by actively listening, communicating clearly, and showing empathy, and she does her best to ensure the customer's issues are fully resolved. Sarah also leads the quarterly fee roundtable meetings with state and regional board staff. These meetings have been an integral part of the fee programs, and they provide a forum for staff statewide to discuss fee issues, invoicing processes, and collaborate on revising or developing new fee schedules. During these meetings, Sarah is an effective facilitator who sets clear objectives and guidelines while encouraging participation from all attendees. Her ability to create an inclusive and engaging atmosphere makes the meetings both efficient and impactful. Finally, Sarah was an integral piece working with the recycled water team to develop and revise a brand new fee options for interested party feedback and to achieve a balanced fee structure for board's considerations this past fall of 2024. As supervisor of the branch, it's always a good feeling with other organizations within the water boards reach out to me to acknowledge the appreciation of Sarah's knowledge, expertise, dedication, and hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sarah. We'll go ahead and take a quick photo and just thank you, Mr. Ceccarelli, for elevating Ms. Fong's work. As we know here at the dais, the yearly fee discussion is not always an easy one. And the ability, though, to bring folks along, to be open and transparent around where fee increases, the reasons they're happening, but importantly, to just continue to be transparent around where the staff time is going, how we continue to try to do our best to minimize those fee increases and create the trust with the regulated entities is just really appreciated. So thank you for elevating Ms. Fong, and thank you for your incredible work in the fee section. Again, that is no easy haul, I know, because it is hard when folks are feeling that pressure economically, and here we are needing to recoup fees for our programs, though. So just thank you, much appreciated. We'll take a quick photo. Next, I'd like to call up Lucia Neri.
Good morning, Mr. Escobar. Good morning, board members. Today, we're here to present a award that was nominated by the Division of Water Quality. It's to our employee, Lan Davey. He is the Division of Water Quality indicated that he proactively managed, provided support to them, provided timely responses, and had an accommodating attitude that helped maintain and achieve the Division of Water Quality. We're proud to present this in the Human Resources Branch to our employee, Lan Davey. He's in our liaison unit and has actively and successfully supported one of our divisions.
Thank you for that nomination, and thank you, Mr. Land, for your incredible work here at the board. It is much appreciated, and especially our folks in the Division of Administrative Services. I know, a lot of attention certainly gets paid to the water quality work, the water rights, the various divisions, but DAS, you guys are the heart of everything that we do here. And so just incredible appreciation for your contributions, and well-deserved, well-deserved. And we'll take a quick photo as well then. All right, and our next award will be presented by Phil Crater. Yeah, that works.
Morning, everybody. Phil Crater. I'm the Deputy Director with the State Water Board's Division of Water Quality. Really happy to be here today to call out one of our superstars, but I do want to just take a second to recognize Davey and the award that was just presented. He's been absolutely fantastic to work with. I feel really lucky to have our partners up there, and so thanks and congratulations on that. I'm here today to present a Sustained Superior Accomplishment Award to Stephen Mullery. He's an engineering geologist in our underground storage tank unit, GeoTracker unit. GeoTracker, as the name would imply, at least originally related to groundwater, it's an evolving database that we use to track compliance related to a number of the board's programs now. It's used by the regional boards, state board, local agencies, regulated industry, and the public. And Stephen has been supporting the team since 2017 and has become an expert with the system. He is now our technical lead, and he works really closely with the programmers to make sure, or to ensure proper maintenance of the system, to develop new features that assist with streamlining processes and to provide more effective project management for the 13 programs that are supported by the database. Stephen has been absolutely vital in assisting with the implementation, the improvement, and enhancement of those features, and most notably, and a big contribution, has been working with our Central Coast Board to develop and implement tools that are associated with their irrigated lands program. Stephen took it upon himself to learn their order backwards and forwards so he could have a better understanding of the needs of the program and the regulated community in that region. The regional boards all know Stephen, and they depend on his expertise and his amazing customer service. And he's receiving this award today in recognition of his continued contribution working with Water Board's program staff in developing and updating the GeoTracker, providing excellent service to the public, and just generally being a delight to work with. So please join me in thanking and congratulating Stephen. And as awesome a job as he's done, I'm embarrassed that I don't have a frame. I have a folder. We have one upstairs, but today we have this, and I just want to really sincerely thank you. Yep, congratulations.
Huge thanks, Mr. Mullery. Huge thanks, Mr. Mullery. The data and GeoTracker are such a foundation, as Mr. Crater said, of so many of our programs. It's what drives our ability to be a data-driven decision-making body. And so just have to thank and add my praise to you. It's no small feat running and managing these systems, and especially one so integral as GeoTracker. So well deserved, well deserved. All right, next in our line of presentations here, we have Brianna St. Pierre.
Good morning. I am Brianna St. Pierre. I'm the Assistant Director for our Office of Sustainable Groundwater Management, and we oversee the Water Board's implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA. And I am honored to present Sarah Sugar and Anthony Willets with the Sustained Superior Accomplishment Award today. Sarah and Anthony both joined the SGMA team in 2020. They were essential to the development of the Water Board SGMA program in developing processes and supporting sustainable groundwater management practices. They led the technical assessments of groundwater sustainability plans and staff reports supporting probationary determinations. They are key drivers of team culture, encouraging collaboration and technical excellence, and bring a passion for finding equitable solutions to groundwater management challenges. Scrolling, I got a lot. Sarah worked on the development of a process for noticing and holding probationary hearings under SGMA, including stakeholder engagement, technical and administrative record development, and hearing components. She led staff to provide technical expertise to Department of Water Resources on addressing vulnerable groundwater uses and users. She led a team that resulted in the first basin being designated as probationary under SGMA. And Sarah also served on steering committees for several external guidance documents of statewide importance, including DWR's groundwater management principles and strategies to monitor, analyze, and minimize impacts to drinking water wells. Anthony led a team that resulted in the second basin being designated as probationary under SGMA. He oversaw the SGMA program's external-facing data system, developed innovative enhancements to meet program and user needs, and trained a team to maintain and improve the data system. Anthony also led and oversaw development of critical technical analyses and tools supporting basin assessments and probationary basin hearings. Some of the analyses and tools included potential dry well impact assessments, groundwater extraction estimates using evapotranspiration data, and bulk analysis and compilation of likely well owners for outreach and engagement. Successful implementation of SGMA means that all users of water, including disadvantaged communities, should not experience worsening issues with access to safe and affordable drinking water. With Anthony and Sarah's efforts, the State Water Board was able to take its first steps towards fulfilling its role in ensuring groundwater is managed sustainably in California for all and for future generations. Thank you, Anthony and Sarah.
And I really have to add my thanks here as well. It's been an incredible pleasure to watch this SGMA team form, to see the work gain momentum. As I said at the top here, we deal with a lot of difficult discussions at the board, but the care in which you all have helped launch the SGMA program has helped us have discussions here at the dais and hearings, probationary hearings for the basins that have been referred to the board in a way that has allowed us to make progress. And so just huge thanks. That's really seen and appreciate the elevation of your work here with the award. Thank you. All right, and now for our last set of awards here, I'd like to call up James Knockbauer.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. I'm James Knockbauer, Director of the Office of Research, Planning, and Performance. And I'm joined here this morning by Assistant Director Laura Fisher. We are here to recognize the work of the Office of Research, Planning, and Performance and the Office of Chief Counsel's team who worked on the Making Conservation a Way of Life regulation and on associated drought response in the last drought. To really put their accomplishment in perspective, I want to go back to 2011 when drought was beginning to take hold here in California. That led to a whole series of policy changes in California, including through an executive order calling first for 20% voluntary reductions in urban water use, and then later an executive order asking the board to impose 25% reductions. The board did so through an emergency regulation, and while that was effective in some ways, there was a lot of opinion, a lot of perspective that it was not an approach well suited to the diversity of the water suppliers in California, to the geographic diversity, to the diversity of size and water uses across California. And so the legislature in 2018 passed major legislation calling for a new and much more complicated framework for water conservation here. That framework called on the Department of Water Resources and the board to work together in complicated ways over a long period of time. The department worked on recommendations. The board's main role was to take action to develop a regulation based and informed by those regulations. The legislation was incredibly complicated and covered many areas, many details, many things people had a wide range of perspectives and views on. And the work took place over multiple phases. There was an extensive pre-rulemaking phase when our team here participated with the Department of Water Resources in a number of workshops and meetings. That's when we began to grow our team and began to start contracting with academic experts for the analysis we would need for the regulation. I believe there were 10 different working groups and meetings convened by the department in that time. And then during our one-year rulemaking period, we had 4 appearances here at the board, 6 comment periods, 28 working group meetings with interested parties as we worked out the details of the various drafts and proposals. And across those 6 different comment periods, we received over 570 different public comments. So all of those required a huge amount of work and coordination, and that is what we are here to recognize from this team. It's the first regulation of its kind to propose standard-based budgets at the statewide level for cities and towns, and it will provide a lot of, it'll improve water management in California in the long run. In the short run, we're already seeing some success. 76% of suppliers submitted their reports on time. And of the suppliers that have submitted reports so far, 87% are in compliance now with their objectives. This has been a huge team effort, and so now we will recognize members of this team. I'm going to touch on just a few things for each of them because this has been such a long effort over many, many years, and because many people contributed in so many different ways. But I'll begin with Charlotte Ely. When this work started, she was an employee at the US EPA in Region 9. Come on up, Charlotte. And she was promoted to a senior environmental science position in ORPP, leading the conservation work, and subsequently was promoted to an environmental program manager role also in the office. She's brought a tremendously holistic perspective to the conservation work. She was very aware of the context in which we're working and the many connections that were possible to make to keep this work moving forward in an innovative way. She was crucial for the development of our contract that laid out a lot of the analysis that we would later rely on. And she always kept the legislation in mind as we moved through this long and complex process. So thank you, Charlotte. Next, I'd like to call up Mary Penno. Mary has been invaluable as we've ran so many workshops and meetings. She put together a list of funding opportunities that we made available online that suppliers could avail themselves of. She's been crucial for our engagement with suppliers, and she's also been processing the water waste reports that we've been getting as part of our drought response over this time. So thank you very much, Mary. Next, I'll call up David Rose and Garrett Lenahan. These are our colleagues in the Office of Chief Counsel. They're tremendous attorneys, very patient, but also very fast in their review. We relied on them extensively for a whole host of things, including on-the-fly responses during board meetings and workshops, but also really detailed, thoughtful responses as we worked our way through the Administrative Procedures Act. And they've just been really wonderful integrated members of our team. So thank you. Next, I'll call up Mariel Rodero. Mariel has been our extraordinary data scientist. She's been presenting here the monthly water use and water conservation updates during the drought, and she's responded to many, many requests to present that data sliced in many different ways. I think her main accomplishment, though, over this process has been an incredibly complicated reporting form. This is the most complicated Excel file I've ever seen. I think it's got 20 different tabs, and it has allowed our suppliers, our regulated entities here, to meet their reporting requirements as easily as possible. It pulls in data from, I believe, as many as 8 different data sources, and it means that those suppliers don't have to enter again data that the state has already collected. So that's a real accomplishment for data streamlining here. She's also been working on an automatic process to develop assessments of these reports submitted to us by the 400 plus water suppliers. So thank you, Marielle. Next, I'll call up Paula Gonzalez. Paula was an environmental scientist when this started. She was promoted in December to a senior environmental scientist supervisor in the office and leads a different team, but has continued to be involved with our conservation work. She worked on the indoor standard during the sort of pre-rulemaking phase, especially, and later on the commercial, industrial, and institutional performance measures. She's been a key part of our outreach to disadvantaged community suppliers, and logistically, administratively developed a really important tool for our process here, which was keeping track of the different milestones and deadlines and dates as part of that one-year rulemaking process. I believe each tab of that spreadsheet had around 200 rows showing different steps we had to accomplish. And as we organized those 4 different board meetings and those 6 different comment periods, she was crucial in being sure we would have time to get through the entire rulemaking process in that 1 year. So thank you, Paula. Next, Karina Herrera, come on up, please. So when we started, Karina was an environmental scientist. She is now a senior environmental scientist supervisor. She took over from Charlotte and is leading our conservation work. She worked on the outdoor standard, which is in some ways the heart of this regulation, and has been presenting on the reg with her colleagues in many different venues. She's been leading the team during a complicated transition from finalizing the rulemaking to pivoting into an implementation mode. So thank you very much, Karina. Next, I'd like to call up Chris Hyun. Chris worked on many parts of drought response, including the emergency regulations. These are things that dealt with prohibited uses of water and non-functional turf. These were complicated, multiple different iterations of these things, and Chris developed FAQs and our website to help the public understand which of these emergency regulations were in effect at which time and how they overlapped or interacted. He's also helped us apply a climate lens to our prioritization of our outreach to suppliers. So thank you very much, Chris. There you are. Pedro Aratania, come on up. So Pedro is an economist on our team. He integrated elements from many different sources into, I think, our most complicated economic analysis that the board has done. He also did a lot of independent analysis of both the options that suppliers would have to comply and the amount of water that would be saved through this regulation overall. It was really incredible work and great to work with you on, again, I think the most complicated SWRCB the board has done to date. So thank you. And finally, I'd like to call up Ava Scally. She did extensive GIS work. She worked on the outdoor standard. She worked on comment responses and many other elements. A really crucial role was as our main coordinating editor for a whole bunch of really complicated files. The reg itself, final statement of reasons, and related files all went through many, many versions in track changes with many, many authors over this whole process. And she kept those files functional and was no small task. So thank you very much, Ava. And I guess to them all, I just want to say you've been a really wonderful team, and I've learned so much in working from you all. So thank you very much.
Really have to echo that thanks. You know, the conservation regulation was a huge lift. It really was, given just the amount of engagement and feedback, all the meetings, the highly technical nature of the work as well, and the fact that we were able to get it across the finish line, but with really refined support is all because of the work that you all have done here. And so just have to give my thanks. I know, again, the work can sometimes feel a bit fraught, but ultimately it's the outcomes that we are all here proud of. So just huge thanks, and thank you to Mr. Nachbauer for elevating the team and its work. And it's really seen. Huge thanks. One last awkward photo. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate the space to be able to acknowledge and thank the great work that our folks do here. I know that there's a lot that we don't see day to day, and being able to elevate the work here of our folks here in the program and be able to acknowledge it is just really appreciated. So thank you to all the leadership for elevating, acknowledging folks' work, and thank you importantly to you all for the work that you do. So thank you. All right, that wraps up our Superior Accomplishment Awards, and now brings us to our first item of board business. First item is consideration of the board meeting minutes from the March 18th board meeting. Look to my fellow board colleagues if there's any adjustment or otherwise.
I'll make a motion.
Well, I wanted to make, if we could take a brief break. For some reason, the AV team is having a problem getting our virtual board members up on the screen. And
Okay.
I'd like them, since we're now moving into items that are actually on the record, it'd be good to have them up. And unfortunately, what happens is when they make this switch, it's no longer sending the room out into Zoom. So
Yeah, let's go ahead and
take
give ourselves a 5-minute break, or would you like 10?
Yeah, why don't we do 10? I don't know what the specific
All right,
issue they're
let's go ahead
encountering
and
is.
do 10 minutes, and we'll bring ourselves back here at 10:50. Thanks, everyone. Take a quick break.
Test 1, 2.
Sean and Dee Dee, can you bring your cameras back up? Give the AV crew just a moment to get back into the room so that they can actually broadcast what's going on in here.
All right, everyone. Thanks for the break here, allowing us to just adjust some of the technical issues here within the room. Okay, now it brings us to board item number 1, which is board consideration of the board meeting minutes from March 18th. Look to my fellow board colleagues if they have any amendments, and then otherwise open for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call roll call vote?
Board Member Morgan.
Aye.
Board Member Firestone.
Aye.
Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo.
Aye.
Michael, their sound isn't working again. And Chair Escobar.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just note, I think we're having audio issues again from folks on the Zoom platform. Fix one issue, create another, I think. Okay. Next, we will go to our uncontested item and just checking with the clerk to see if it's still uncontested. All right. And looking to fellow board colleagues if they would like to bring it off to uncontested item or otherwise open for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call roll call vote for item number 2?
Board Member Morgan.
Aye.
Board Member Firestone.
Aye.
Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Chair Diadamo.
Aye.
And Chair Escobar.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries and the item is adopted. Want to thank folks from the Division of Financial Assistance for the great work on it. The fact that we're able to have it uncontested shows how good a job you've done at it. All right. Next, we'd like to move to our informational item, which is our current hydrologic conditions and response. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, Chair Escobar, Vice Chair Diadamo, and members of the board. My name is Abby Warner, and I'm an environmental scientist in the Drought Planning, Hearings, and Special Projects section of the Division of Water Rights. I'll be providing the hydrologic update this morning. Next slide, please. First, I'll spend some time going over the current statewide hydrology, and then we'll switch to updates about the Scott River and Shasta River watersheds. And finally, we'll end with an update on water rights annual reporting. Next slide, please. As of March 31st, the accumulated precipitation for the year was 103%. However, as you can tell from this map, the average precipitation varies regionally across the state, with the northern part of the state having seen greater than average precipitation and the southern part of the state having seen less than average precipitation thus far during the water year. Next, we'll look more closely at the precipitation indices. Next slide, please. As of March 31st, in the Northern Sierra, the cumulative precipitation for the water year so far is 116% of average, which is a couple percentages, 4% lower than last month's average. Next slide, please. And the San Joaquin, we see that the cumulative precipitation is currently 72% of average, which is up 4% from last month. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll just keep going. In the Tulare Basin, the cumulative precipitation is 89% of average, which is a 9% increase compared to last month's update. Next slide, please. What should be displaying on the screen is the total snow water content across the state at the bottom, and then the snow water content for the northern, central, and southern parts of the Sierra Nevada in the top 3 charts. This is a slide that's been shown many times during these board updates. This slide also provides the percentage of the April 1st average and the percent of normal to date. For this reading, because we received the April update for the snow water content from DWR last Friday, those numbers are exactly the same. And those numbers are as followed. For the Northern Sierra, we're at 118% of average. For the Central Sierra, we're at 91% of average. And in the Southern Sierra, we are at 84% of average. So statewide, we are currently at 96% of normal. All right, next slide, please. So this graphic shows the current conditions for the major water supply reservoirs in California, which all remain at or above average to date. Statewide, major reservoirs are at 117% of average. Next slide, please. As you are already aware, an emergency regulation was readopted for the Scott River and Shasta River watersheds, and it became effective on January 27th, 2025. The emergency regulation will last for 1 year. Curtailments remain suspended in both watersheds, and the slide shows more information about the current snowpack and flow in both watersheds. Finally, as an update, the Division of Water Rights has begun compiling information to support the development of an economic analysis and scientific basis report for baseline minimum flows in the Scott River and Shasta River watersheds. The public is invited to provide feedback and submit information by April 25th. The notice and instructions for submitting feedback are available under the announcements section of the website that's shown at the bottom of this slide. Next slide, please. This slide shows the Scott River flows in blue, the emergency minimum flows in red, and precipitation is shown as green bars across the graph. As you can see, the flows in March currently exceed the upper reach of the graph, well above the emergency minimum flows, and thus curtailments remain suspended. The maximum daily flow thus far this year occurred on January 4th and was 4,970 cubic feet per second. Next slide, please. Similarly, this slide shows the Shasta River flows in blue, the emergency minimum flows in red, and precipitation in the green bars. In the Shasta, flows do as well still exceed the emergency minimum flows, and so curtailments remain suspended. The maximum daily flow this year occurred on February 4th and was 2,200 cubic feet per second. Next slide, please. Lastly, I'd like to provide an update on water rights annual reporting for the water year 2023 to 2024. As you may remember, 54% of water rights holders had submitted their annual reports by the deadline of February 1st. Another 8% proceeded to report during the 30-day late fee grace period. Following this grace period, another 7% have since submitted their reports, which leaves 31% of water right holders outstanding, and post-1914 late fees do continue to apply to those water rights holders. That brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Warner. Looking to folks here, if there's any discussion, we don't have any commenters. And please, Vice Chair.
Thank you. So, Ms. Warner, I have a question regarding Scott Shasta, and I don't expect that you'd be able to answer it. And so, just also looking at Mr. Oppenheimer to get some information for us on the relationship between flows under the emergency reg and the good water that they're having in the watershed. And so, I've received a couple of inquiries from stakeholders in the agricultural community expressing concerns, as they have when we readopted the regulation, that, what if it's another wet year? That doesn't really seem to make sense. And so I'm just curious about whether or not those flows would likely be met anyway, modeling with normal water use. And I don't really know even how to define that, but normal agricultural water use and the relationship between that water use and when you have a good snowpack and precipitation event, or not event, but year. And so that's not very a clear way of asking, but just flagging that for the next time you come before us, to provide some additional information if you're able to do that type of analysis.
We can follow up on that. It'd probably be good if we had a follow-up conversation, Vice Chair. It sounds like what you're asking for is an assessment of whether the existence of the emergency regulation has a impact or effect on water use in the basin. But,
yes.
Okay. We can, I'm not sure if that's something we can ascertain, but we'll certainly look into it. And if we can, we'll report back.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Oppenheimer. Thank you, Vice Chair. Anything further from board members? What they'd like to see in future presentations and or otherwise? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Warner. Really appreciate the update. Good to see you. Many thanks. That wraps up item number 3, which is our current hydrologic conditions and response, and brings us to item number 4, an item from the Administrative Hearings Office. Consideration and potential adoption of proposed order on a matter of a cease and desist order issued against David Collenberg. Give Mr. Bivens a moment to get settled.
All right, thank you, and good morning, Chair Escobar, Vice Chair D'Adamo, members of the board. I'm Sam Bivens with the Administrative Hearings Office, and I'm here today with a relatively straightforward and generally uncontested proposed order in the matter of the draft cease and desist order issued against David Collenberg for violations for failure to comply with diversion measurement and reporting regulations. As before, we're presenting this proposed order under Water Code Section 1114C2, and there are 4 options from that statute applicable today to your consideration of the proposed order. One is to simply adopt the order as written. The second is to make technical or minor changes and adopt the proposed order. The third is to reject the proposed order and remand the matter for further proceedings before the AHO. And the fourth is to reject the proposed order and decide the case for yourself based on the existing record. Of course, we're recommending adoption of the proposed order under Section 1114C2A. Next slide, please. So with that, let's get into the substance here. Mr. Collenberg diverts water under pre-14 claims of right from Orofino and Kidder Creeks, which are both tributary to the Scott River. He diverts water primarily for ranching activities. And it's important to note that the scope and validity of his pre-14 claims are not at issue in this proceeding, but he has diverted over 1,000 acre feet in a year to direct diversion in past years under those claims of right. So these are, fairly significant diversions in a fairly sensitive area. This kind of all started in 2022 when the Division of Water Rights was investigating compliance with the curtailment regulations in the Scott River watershed. The division determined that subsequent to that compliance inspection that Mr. Collenberg was not in compliance with the state board's measurement and monitoring regulations. And there's a fairly lengthy history between the division, the Office of Enforcement, and Mr. Collenberg, history of notices of violation, failure to respond to communications, an administrative civil liability complaint, and then finally the prosecution team brought a draft CDO. Next slide, please. So after receiving the draft CDO, Mr. Collenberg requested a hearing. This is right, and we held a hearing on the draft CDO on October 14th, 2024 at his request. And the hearing focused on the 3 issues that are there up on the screen. First, was respondent required to install and maintain a measuring device or employ a method of measurement at his points of diversion? And if so, what were the requirements with which he must comply? 2, had respondent complied with this obligation, if any, to measure and report his diversion? And then 3, if we found that he had not complied with his measurement and reporting obligations, what relief should be granted? Is the draft CDO that the prosecution team proposed an appropriate remedy for those alleged violations? I want to just point out for the record that respondent, although he requested a hearing, he didn't offer any evidence in the hearing, dispute the lack of a measurement device at his points of diversion, or submit a closing brief. His participation was primarily limited to cross-examination questions designed to, we think, to advance arguments about the adequacy of service with respect to the draft CDO and the financial feasibility of his compliance with the board's regulations. Next slide, please. So just to get into our findings here, a diverter's obligation to install a measurement device depends on the amount of his water right claim. And here, Mr. Collenberg claimed a right to divert more than 1,000 acre feet. And so he was required to install a measurement device that could record data at least on an hourly basis. It was undisputed that he had not complied with that obligation. There was no evidence of any measurement device being installed at his points of diversion. On the issue of feasibility, there was no alternative compliance plan submitted by the respondent, which is really the only way to raise the issue of financial feasibility of compliance with the measurement regulations. There's a process and approval that needs to be gone through. That never occurred. And then finally, service was not, the adequacy of service was not truly at issue. The relevant statute is Water Code Section 1834, which provides that service can be accomplished through any means of physical delivery that results in receipt. That occurred, and obviously, Mr. Collenberg, did request a hearing, didn't object to service at the time he requested a hearing, or really at any point. So we don't think that's an issue either, and the proposed order reflects that. And then finally, we determined that a cease and desist order prohibiting Mr. Collenberg from diverting water under his claims of right until he complies with the board's measurement regulations is appropriate. Mr. Collenberg had multiple opportunities to comply with the regulations, didn't avail himself of those opportunities. Obviously, measurement is incredibly important for your administration of California's water rights system. We need that data. And then finally, the Scott River watershed is a very ecologically sensitive area, supports important habitats for coho salmon and Chinook salmon. And so overall, the called balance of the equities weighed in favor of approving the prosecution team's request for that cease and desist order. Next slide, please. We have not received any comments from Mr. Collenberg or any other interested parties to date, and I do want to make clear that Mr. Collenberg had an opportunity to comment on a draft version of this proposed order before it came to you. We received no comments there, and I've not received any comments or word of any comments from Mr. Collenberg or any other parties since.
Mr. Bivens, can I ask, has there been any communication at all, or just not response to the draft order?
No, just a non-response. And that concludes my presentation. To the next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. And so if there are any questions, comments, happy to hear them.
Thank you. I know we have one commenter, Debbie Orrs from our Office of Enforcement. I don't know, Ms. Orrs, if you wanted to make any comment. Good morning. Good to see you. Thank you as well for your work on this, Ms. Orrs. Looking to fellow board colleagues if there's any discussion or debate. Just note, as we just heard from our hydrologic response and conditions update, the reporting percentages continue to be low. And so when it comes to ensuring a fair system here where all water right holders are complying by their requirements, especially around diversion and reporting, it's important to continue to send a signal that we're wanting to make sure we create that fair and equitable space for all water right holders. And when you have folks that are simply not complying, not reporting, it hurts the entire integrity of the system. And so I know I personally am supportive here, but look to see if there's any comment or discussion here from fellow board colleagues. Okay, and if not, I think we may be ready for a motion.
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Ms. Tyler, can you please call a roll call vote?
Board Member Firestone,
Aye.
Board Member Morgan. Aye. Board Member McGuire.
Aye.
Vice Chair Diadamo
Aye.
and Chair Escobar.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. The vote is unanimous and the order is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Bivens. Appreciate your work on this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and that now brings us to item number 5, which is board member reports. Quickly bring up my calendar. I don't know if any board members want to jump in with reports or non-reports.
Sure. I have one item to report. Last Thursday, March 27th, I had the honor of touring Clear Lake and the Upper Lake tributaries and also the Big Valley area. I had gone on a tour about 2 years ago, and it was nice to go back, see some of the same areas. And so 2 years ago when I was there, saw some fry this year. Saw some hitch that were approximately 2 to 3 years old, and they were spawning. Some areas, there were a few other areas, 20 plus. One area, there were many. So that was really, really great to see. Really great just to see the, that see the hitch, that see them returning, and see just also the work that has been done over this 2-year period of time, the collaboration between state, federal, local partners, the tribes, just the removal of barriers, removal of plants, blackberries, invasive species, just the also restoration work, and so really looking forward to that continued work so that we can continue to see hitch return year after year and not just during wet or normal years. And so really was just honored just to be able to go back 2 years later, see those areas, see where 2 years ago there was a barrier. The barrier is now gone. We see the hitch in that area. Same thing for just where there's been restoration work, see that the hitch are returning, coming to that area where that restoration work has occurred. And so just, it's that collaboration and that proof that when we do get out there, we do that work, that there are benefits. So just was a great day spent. Also did have the opportunity to go out with the Lake County Farm Bureau, see some of the work that they're also doing, see some of the studies that they're looking at, as far as looking at whether or not they can use more wind machines for temperature freezing control versus using sprinklers. Had also good conversations with them. So just good day to get out there, and really grateful that I had the opportunity to go and that everyone was there to, also gave their time to do the tour and to take me to those areas.
That's fantastic. Really appreciate you getting back out there. I know, the Clear Lake area and the challenges around the hitch continue to be a concern for the board. So really appreciate that leadership. And to your point, just being able to see some of the successes and the continued momentum as folks work together on the issues there. So really appreciate that leadership, board member. Others?
I'll just quickly report, I was able to attend the California Association of Family Farms policy and farm tour day in Yolo County, and got to hear from a lot of small, very diversified farmers, and kind of hear gosh, so many different ways that our board interacts with farmers, and it was great to get out there and see all the things growing right now. Appreciate their hosting.
That's fantastic. Thank you for getting out there. And yeah, definitely a lot of surface area that we work with our ag folks. And so it means a lot to have you out there. So thank you, board member. Board member McGuire.
Yeah, thank you. Originally in January, I was invited by Las Virgenes Municipal Water District down near Calabasas area, Thousand Oaks in Southern California to attend the kickoff for a pilot project for a new desalination technology that they're partnering with a company called Ocean Well to look at. In January, unfortunately, because of the Palisades fire, they were impacted by that and had to reschedule the event. But I'm grateful that they were able to do so safely a couple weeks ago on March 21st. So I was able to attend and really just intrigued, I think is the right way to put it, by the willingness of the water district to look at innovative technologies to build resilient water supplies. They're state water project dependent. They only have one source of supply as things look now. So they are looking outside the box and trying to determine, are there other viable supply solutions? And this is a new technology. It's unproven. That's why they're doing this pilot program. And I have to just briefly describe it, and not to get too engineering on this, but essentially it's for lack of a better term, a buoy that sits several miles out in the ocean, very, very deep in the water. So about 1,300 feet underwater is the idea. And it would operate on to some degree with the pressure, the water pressure would help push the water through the reverse osmosis membranes to help desalinate it. And their idea is that because it operates at a much lower pressure, lower energy intensity, has very slow intakes, so it's less impact on marine life in that area, and also discharges a less concentrated brine. So those are the concepts, and we'll see through the pilot program how that proves up. That no one's done it before. So the kickoff was at Las Virgenes Reservoir. So they're actually pilot testing it in a freshwater reservoir first to say, hey, does this work underwater? So that's what we'll be doing now over the next several months. And so we'll see how that data comes out. But, I just was glad to be a part of it. Sometimes these ideas don't pan out. They don't work. But often we don't know if we don't try it and aren't willing to experiment with new approaches. So like I said, I'm intrigued by that, and just, we'll be tracking this as it moves along. I wanted to share that update. It was a good event. That's all I had.
That's great. Really appreciate that, Board Member McGuire. Thanks for being there. I know the company, I think, has come through and met with, I think it was John Bishop and I at one point. I know Tim Quinn, formerly from Aqua, has been advising, I think, the company as well. It's exciting. As you said, there's real opportunity for innovation, and sometimes that pans out, sometimes it doesn't, but the ability to have that space and that testing, and importantly, water agencies willing to take that risk, if you will, make that initial investment, is great. So thanks for being there and representing the board. And, especially as we consider desal and other forms of new potable water, innovating is going to be a key part of that. So really appreciate your leadership in being there. And Vice Chair, I don't know if.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, great. The only thing I was going to mention was on March 20th, I had the pleasure of joining some colleagues over at UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley had a World Water Day celebration. They invited a few speakers, researchers, both from China and here, to talk about, innovation and innovations in desal and the materials being used, and the defouling that is important to ensure that those systems continue to run. So a real heavy technical discussion there. And then also a researcher from China talking about nature-based solutions and, building out areas of floodplain and ultimately ponding and terracing to be able to slow water down, recharge, clean it, importantly, as well, as we know wetlands do. And, from him, a vision of, a sponge city, if you will, a sponge planet, where we're rebuilding that sort of infrastructure. So that was really great to hear. I participated in a panel ultimately with Nusha Jami, former board member at the San Francisco Regional Board, and former PUC commissioner. She's at UC Berkeley, and was also joined by Letitia Gardner, who's the current head of the PPIC's Water Policy Center. And we had a good discussion around all the policy work that's certainly being done and the implementation of a lot of the concepts that folks were discussing. So it was a great day. It was really good to connect with students as well, importantly, always reminded how incredibly bright and talented they all are in comparison to myself. And so looking for always a future board chair all amongst them. So it was a great opportunity. I really appreciated the space to be able to kind of sit back, reflect for a day, and connect with folks. All right, that brings us to the end of board member reports. Brings us to our executive director's report. Executive Director Oppenheimer, anything you'd like to highlight? Anything?
I just have
bring
a
up?
clarification, which is there's an item in the report on the utility general order that's shown in strike through, and that's in there that way because it indicated that we were going to put the draft order out for an additional 30-day public comment period on, I believe, March 21st, and we ended up just jumping the gun. It was prematurely put into the report. However, since that time, the order has gone out. It went out on March 28th for a 30-day public comment period that concludes on April 29th at 5 p.m. That's all I've got.
Thank you for that, Mr. Oppenheimer. I do see we have one commenter, Regina Chicazola, for this item, but I don't see Ms. Chicazola on the platform. And so hopefully, Ms. Chicazola, we can still take your comment at a future board meeting on the executive director's report. And feel free to email as well any concerns that you may have had or things you wanted to bring up. All right, that brings us to the end of our items for today's agenda. We will have a closed session. We will be in 2540, and gosh, it's 11:30. I think we should probably go ahead and take an early lunch now, so we can go ahead and eat and recharge a bit. So let's go and give ourselves about an hour lunch, and then say we'll convene at 12:30 in 2540, and it will be on Delta Conveyance Project. And I think that'll be the only item that we'll be discussing in closed session today.
Yeah, later.
Okay. Mr. Lawfer, anything further to add?
Yeah, I did want to advise the board is there were some challenges finding an appropriate hearing or meeting room for the closed session. So we will have to take a break at 2 o'clock. So that means we'll get an hour and a half in, and then we'll have the room again at 3.
Sounds good. I appreciate that, Mr. Lawfer. Thank you, everyone. Again, thank you, everyone that addressed the board this morning. Really do appreciate folks bringing their concerns here and having discussion and the opportunity to celebrate the great work that our folks in the programs have done. So thanks, everyone, for a good board meeting. Our next board meeting will be on April 15th. Just as a bit of a teaser, it will actually be Jonathan Bishop, our Chief Deputy's last board meeting at the next one. So be warned. I will have things to say. I think others may too. There will be a larger a celebration of John's career at another place, another time as well. But just want to, everyone's on notice, and it was this close to saying something this morning during all the Superior Accomplishment Awards. I don't know if we have superior accomplishment awards, but you certainly will be deserving that, Mr. Bishop.
And they're not available to executive management, just so you know.
Someone may have to change that. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for today's discussions and board meeting. We will be in closed session and then close out officially at that time. And so we will all see you all